Listen to me. The first thing you got to understand, if you're really serious about separating yourself, is this: you can't blend in. You can't live your life trying to look like everybody else, act like everybody else, and move like everybody else, and then expect a different result. That's not how greatness works. That's not how elevation works. The world has enough people who settle, enough people who are comfortable, enough people who wake up every day and their only goal is to do just enough to get by. If you're going to separate yourself, you've got to be willing to be different on purpose. You've got to be willing to live a life that doesn't look normal to people who don't want it the way you want it. When you look at the people who rise to the top, the ones whose names echo long after they're gone, they weren't normal. They weren't average. They were abnormal in their effort, in their mindset, in their hunger. They didn't care what people said. They didn't care about fitting in. They cared about winning. And here's the truth. Fitting in feels comfortable, but it will never separate you. You'll never become unforgettable by hiding in the crowd. You'll never become great by being afraid to look different. People will laugh at you. People will question you. People will say you're doing too much. But those same people will be the ones clapping when you cross the finish line. They'll be the ones celebrating you after you already endured the loneliness of being different. So you gotta ask yourself, are you willing to go through that? Are you willing to walk alone for a season so you can lead later for a lifetime? Are you willing to sacrifice acceptance right now to gain respect forever? Think about this. When everybody else is sleeping in, you're up. When they're going out, you're staying in. When they're scrolling, you're studying. When they're quitting, you're pushing. That's what separates you. That's what sets you apart. It's not some magical talent. It's not luck. It's a decision you make every single day to not be like the masses. And I'm telling you, the masses will never see the mountaintop. The mountaintop is reserved for the few who dare to climb. When everyone else is satisfied sitting at the bottom, you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You've got to get comfortable with people not understanding you. Stop waiting for validation. Stop waiting for people to clap for you while you're still in the grind. They don't see the vision you see. They don't hear the calling you hear. That's why it was given to you and not to them. Your dream is your responsibility. Your future is in your hands. If you want it, you've got to prove it by separating yourself from anything and anybody that pulls you back to average. And don't get it twisted. Separating yourself isn't just about outworking people. It's about outliving them in your character, outshining them in your consistency, outperforming them in your discipline. It's easy to turn it up for a day. It's easy to give effort for a week. But when you can separate yourself by showing up month after month, year after year, when nobody's watching, that's when you become unstoppable. That's when the world has no choice but to notice you. There are people out here who could be great, but they'll never taste greatness because they're addicted to comfort. They want the applause before they put in the work. They want the recognition without the rejection. They want to rise without the risk. That's not how it works. You don't get to separate yourself if you're always chasing approval. Separation requires courage. Separation requires sacrifice. Separation requires you to say, I'd rather stand alone in truth than live accepted in average. I need you to decide right now. Are you ready to stop blending in? Are you ready to stop living like everybody else? Are you ready to stop chasing comfort and start chasing purpose? Because the moment you decide, the moment you commit, your life changes. It doesn't change when people believe in you. It doesn't change when they cheer for you. It changes when you stop following the crowd and you choose to separate yourself. That's the price of greatness. That's the cost of the dream. You can't want to be different and live the same. You can't want the extraordinary and keep doing the ordinary. If you really want to separate yourself, you have to step out of the line that leads to mediocrity and walk boldly on the path that leads to destiny. The world doesn't need another copy. The world doesn't need another average story. The world needs the best version of you, fully committed, fully alive, fully set apart. Separate yourself. Everybody wants success, but not everybody is willing to pay for it. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. They want the prize, but they don't want the process. They want the reward, but they don't want the sacrifice. You can talk about dreams all day long, but until you're ready to pay the price, you'll never touch them. Success doesn't go on sale. There are no discounts. There are no shortcuts. If you want it, you've got to be willing to do what others refuse to do. Look around you. Most people stop the moment it gets hard. They back off when it gets uncomfortable. They quit when it gets painful. That's why there's such a small percentage of people at the top. The reason is simple: it costs too much, and people don't want to pay it. They don't want the long nights, the early mornings, the rejections, the failures, the discipline, the loneliness, the grind. But let me tell you something. Every bit of that cost is the very thing that shapes you into the person who can handle success when it finally shows up. The pain you feel in the process is not punishment, it's preparation. Every sacrifice, every tear, every setback, it's all part of the investment. It's like putting money in the bank, except what you're investing isn't cash. It's your sweat, your time, your effort, your energy. And if you stay consistent, that investment pays back with interest. But the question is, are you willing to stay in the game long enough? Are you willing to put in more than you get out for a season, trusting that one day the reward will make it all worth it? See, the problem with most people is they want the results right now. They don't want to wait. They don't want to grind in the dark. They don't want to be faithful when nobody notices. But that's the price. That's the fee. You've got to endure the hidden years, the silent seasons, the times when nobody claps, nobody calls, nobody cares. And if you can handle that, you're separating yourself, because most people don't make it through that stage. When others are out having fun, you've got to be working. When others are sleeping, you've got to be up. When others are making excuses, you've got to be executing. That's the difference. That's how you separate yourself. It's not because you're more talented. It's not because you're more gifted. It's because you're more committed to paying the price. I need you to stop asking for it to be easy. Stop asking for it to be quick. Stop asking for it to be comfortable. If it were easy, everybody would have it. If it were quick, everybody would get it. If it were comfortable, everybody would live it. You've got to embrace the difficulty. You've got to embrace the grind, because that's what builds the muscle. That's what builds the character. That's what builds the resilience you're going to need at the top. Listen, there's going to be days when you want to quit. There's going to be days when you ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? And the answer is because you refuse to settle for less. You refuse to be average. You refuse to live and die without reaching the level you were built for. That's why. That's the price. It hurts now, but it pays forever. And let me be clear, the people who refuse to pay the price always end up paying another one. The price of regret. The price of what if. The price of watching somebody else live the life they dreamed of because they weren't willing to sacrifice for it. You're going to pay either way, so you might as well pay with sweat and discipline instead of regret and disappointment. Every single day you wake up, you've got to ask yourself, am I willing to pay the cost today? Not next week, not when I feel like it, not when it's convenient. Today, because greatness isn't bought in bulk. It's purchased in small payments every day, over and over and over again. So if you're serious, if you're ready, stop waiting for somebody to hand it to you. Stop waiting for it to get easier. Stop waiting for a discount. Pay the price they're not willing to pay, and you'll live the life they'll never touch. Separate yourself. Life is going to test you. It's going to throw obstacles in your path. It's going to place weights on your shoulders, and it's going to see if you'll break. Everybody in this room has a story. Everybody has been through something. For some of you, it was how you grew up. For others, it's financial struggles, broken relationships, rejection, or setbacks you didn't see coming. The truth is, life doesn't ask you if you're ready. It doesn't give you a warning. It just hits. And here's where most people fail. They let those hits define them. They let their circumstances become their identity. They start believing that where they are is who they are, and that's a lie. You can't let your circumstances define you, because if you do, you'll stay trapped in them. The difference between those who rise and those who stay stuck is not that the successful never face problems. It's that they refuse to let those problems write the final chapter. They refuse to be victims of their story. They make a choice. My situation might be tough, but it will not dictate my destination. I know it's not easy. It's easy to blame where you came from. It's easy to say, if only I had more money, if only I had more support, if only I had better opportunities. But if you live in the if only, you'll never experience the what's possible. You've got to make a decision that no matter how broken it looks, no matter how unfair it feels, no matter how heavy it gets, you're going to rise above it, because your destiny is bigger than your difficulty. Think about it. Some of the most powerful people in history, some of the most inspiring stories we tell, they didn't come from comfort. They didn't start with everything handed to them. They came out of struggle. They came out of pain. They came out of storms that should have buried them. And yet, because they refused to let circumstances define them, they turned their story into one that inspires the world. And if they could do it, why not you? Why not now? See, your circumstances are temporary. They're not permanent unless you choose to stay in them. Struggle is a season, not a life sentence. But most people turn a season into a sentence because they give up too soon. They allow the pain to convince them they can't go any further. But if you can endure, if you can keep pushing, if you can keep fighting, you'll see that the storm always passes. The night always ends, and the sun always rises again. You've got to make up your mind that when life hits, you won't stay down. You've got to be the one who says, yes, I took a loss, but I'm not a loser. Yes, I failed, but I'm not a failure. Yes, I got knocked down, but I refuse to stay down. That's how you separate yourself. That's how you show the world you're different. Anybody can smile when things are easy. Anybody can be motivated when everything is going their way. But it takes a warrior to keep moving when everything around you is falling apart. Stop waiting for perfect conditions to chase your purpose. Stop waiting for the pain to disappear before you take the next step. Stop telling yourself you'll start when it gets easier. It might not get easier, but you will get stronger. It might not get lighter, but you will get tougher. And the moment you realize that, you stop being a victim and you start being a victor. Every time you rise above your circumstances, you're not just changing your own life. You're showing the people watching you that it can be done. You're showing your family, your community, the people who doubt themselves, that it's possible to break the cycle. You're proving that where you start doesn't have to determine where you finish. Don't let your environment trick you into thinking small. Don't let your past convince you your future is over. Don't let temporary pain stop you from permanent greatness. Your story isn't over. It's just being written. And you have the pen in your hand. Separate yourself. There comes a moment when good is not enough. There comes a point when you've got to stop being satisfied with doing just what's expected and start pushing to set the expectation. If you really want to separate yourself, you can't be okay with being average. And you can't even be okay with being good. You've got to decide to become the standard, the one people look at and measure themselves against. You've got to decide that when people think about excellence, your name comes to mind. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when you commit to living at a level most people don't even attempt. When you become the standard, you're not checking what the next man is doing. You're not worried about the competition. You're not comparing yourself to what's around you. You're too busy setting the pace. You're too busy raising the bar. People who are average look side to side. People who separate themselves look forward and up. They're not interested in blending in. They're interested in leading. But hear me clearly, it's not about talent alone. There are plenty of talented people who never became the standard. It's about consistency. It's about discipline. It's about showing up on days when you don't feel like it and still delivering at a high level. Excellence doesn't happen once. Excellence is a habit, a lifestyle. It's a choice you make every single day. And when you make that choice long enough, you begin to rewire your brain, you begin to reprogram your body, and excellence becomes your default setting. Most people settle for average because average is safe. Average doesn't require sacrifice. Average doesn't demand more of you than you're willing to give. But here's the truth, nobody remembers average. Nobody celebrates average. Nobody talks about average years later. People remember the ones who stood out. They remember the ones who set the bar so high that everybody else had to rise just to keep up. That's the level I'm asking you to reach. When you commit to becoming the standard, you don't just change your life, you change the environment around you. You start shifting cultures. You start raising expectations in your home, your workplace, your team, your community. People look at how you move, how you work, how you carry yourself, and they realize they can't bring excuses anymore. Your very presence forces people to elevate. That's what it means to separate yourself. But don't miss this. It's not glamorous at first. Becoming the standard requires unseen hours. It requires sacrifice nobody thanks you for. It requires you to do the little things with excellence when nobody is paying attention. The world will only see the highlight reel, but you know the behind the scenes. You know the blood, the sweat, the tears. You know the mornings you woke up when you didn't want to. The nights you stayed in when everybody else went out. The times you pushed past exhaustion when quitting looked easier. That's what builds a standard. That's what separates you. You've got to be relentless about it. You can't say, I'll be excellent today and then settle tomorrow. You can't turn it on and off when you feel like it. Separation comes from consistency. Anybody can be great once, but can you be great over and over again? Can you show up so many times at such a high level that people stop being surprised by it and start expecting it from you? That's when you know you've become the standard. And let me tell you something powerful. When you live at that level, opportunities will chase you. You won't have to beg for recognition. You won't have to fight for doors to open. Excellence speaks for itself. Excellence creates a reputation. Excellence makes you undeniable. People can ignore your words. They can question your background. They can doubt your potential, but they cannot deny consistent excellence. So stop aiming for acceptance. Stop aiming for average. Stop aiming for just getting by. Push yourself to the place where you are the benchmark, the reference point, the one others look at and say, that's what greatness looks like. That's what separates you from the crowd. That's what leaves a legacy. Separate yourself.